My brother mocked Emma's illness at our family barbecue. She stood up to him, and he snapped. The next day, she crashed her car. I got a chilling call from him, and then he admitted what he'd done. I've always been the kind of guy who tries to keep the peace. My name's Ethan Carter, and I'm just a regular dude from Seattle, Washington, working a desk job at a tech startup. My life was pretty steady until 2 years ago, when everything I thought I knew about family got turned upside down. My girlfriend, Emma, is the love of my life. She's tough, smart, and has this laugh that makes you forget your problems. But she's also got narcolepsy, a condition that makes her fall asleep without warning if she doesn't take her meds. It's not something she talks about much, but it's part of who she is, and I've always admired how she handles it. My younger brother, Noah, is the opposite of me. He's loud, always cracking jokes, and sometimes doesn't know when to stop. Growing up in our little house in Fremont, we were close, pulling pranks and getting into trouble together. But as adults, his sense of humor started to feel mean-spirited, especially when it came to Emma. I never thought he'd cross a line that couldn't be uncrossed, though. That is, until the family barbecue at my parents' place in Bellevue last summer. It was one of those warm Seattle days, the kind where the sun feels like a rare gift. My parents had invited the whole clan, cousins, aunts, uncles, you name it, to their backyard overlooking Lake Washington. Emma and I showed up with a cooler of beers, ready for a chill day. Everyone was laughing, grilling burgers, and tossing a frisbee around. But then Noah started in on Emma. He'd had a few drinks and thought it was funny to make a crack about her narcolepsy. "Hey, Emma, don't fall asleep on us mid-bite," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. The yard went quiet. I saw Emma's face tighten, her eyes narrowing. She's not one to let things slide, so she fired back, calm but sharp. "Noah, maybe if you spent less time mocking people, you'd have something worth saying." The air felt heavy after that. My cousins tried to change the subject, but Noah's face was red, his jaw clenched. He didn't like being called out, especially not in front of everyone. I pulled him aside later, told him to cool it, but he just shrugged me off. "She's too sensitive, Ethan," he muttered, grabbing another beer. I let it go, thinking he'd get over it. That was my first mistake. The next morning, Emma was getting ready for work. She's a graphic designer, freelancing for some big firms downtown. Her routine is strict: take her meds, eat breakfast, check her bag. I remember her standing in our apartment kitchen, sunlight streaming through the window, popping her pill like always. She kissed me goodbye, said she'd see me after her client meeting, and headed out to her car. I had no idea that Noah, still stinging from the barbecue, had done something unthinkable. He'd been at our place the night before, supposedly to borrow a charger, but while he was there, he'd gone through Emma's bag. He swapped her narcolepsy meds for sugar pills he'd gotten from some shady online source. To him, it was just a prank, a way to teach her a lesson for embarrassing him. He didn't think about what could happen. He didn't think about her getting behind the wheel. I was at my desk, staring at code, when my phone buzzed. It was a number I didn't recognize, but the voice on the other end made my heart drop. "Mr. Carter, this is Seattle General Hospital. Your girlfriend, Emma Thompson, was in an accident." My mouth went dry. I could barely hear the details over the pounding in my ears. Emma had fallen asleep while driving on I-5, her car veering into a guardrail at 45 miles an hour. She was alive, thank God, but she was hurt, bruised ribs, a concussion, and a fractured wrist. The police were there too, talking about reckless driving charges. I grabbed my keys and ran out the door, my mind racing. How could this happen? She never missed her meds, never. When I got to the hospital, Emma was in a bed, hooked up to monitors. Her face was pale, her eyes half open. I held her hand, feeling helpless as she whispered, "Ethan, I don't understand. I took my meds." My stomach churned. Something wasn't right. Then my phone buzzed again. It was Noah. His voice was shaky, not like him at all. "Ethan, I messed up. I'm sorry about Emma." I froze. Sorry? What did he mean? My hands trembled as I demanded answers. He stammered, then admitted it. He'd swapped her meds. A prank, he said. A stupid, reckless prank. I hung up, my vision blurring with rage. My brother had done this. My own brother. I sat by Emma's hospital bed in Seattle General, the beeping monitors drilling into my skull. Her hand felt so small in mine, her wrist wrapped in a cast. She was awake but groggy, her eyes searching mine for answers. "Ethan, I swear I took my meds," she whispered, her voice cracking. I nodded, stroking her hair, but my mind was screaming. Noah's confession burned in my chest like acid. My own brother, the guy I'd shared bunk beds with as kids, had swapped Emma's narcolepsy meds for sugar pills. A prank, he'd called it. A prank that put the woman I love in a hospital bed, fighting through pain and confusion. I couldn't process it, not yet. I stepped into the hallway, my hands shaking as I dialed Noah back. The call went straight to voicemail. "You better explain yourself," I hissed into the phone, my voice low but trembling. "You did this to her, Noah. You." I hung up, pacing the sterile corridor. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and every step felt like I was walking on glass. Emma was facing reckless driving charges, jail time, a fine, maybe even a record, all because Noah thought he could teach her a lesson for standing up to him at that damn barbecue. I flashed back to the night before the accident. Noah had swung by our apartment in Fremont, acting all casual, saying he needed to borrow a phone charger. I didn't think twice about letting him in. Emma was in the shower, her bag sitting on the kitchen counter. That's when he must have done it. He'd rifled through her stuff, found her pill bottle, and replaced her meds with fakes he'd bought online. I could picture him smirking, thinking he was so clever, not even considering what might happen if Emma got behind the wheel. My fists clenched at the thought. How could he be so reckless, so cruel? When I got back to Emma's room, a police officer was there, notepad in hand. He was polite but firm, asking Emma questions she could barely answer through the haze of painkillers. "Ma'am, witnesses say you swerved suddenly on I-5, he said. "Fell asleep at the wheel. That's a serious offense." I stepped in, my voice tight. "Officer, there's more to this. She has a medical condition. Something's wrong with her medication." He raised an eyebrow but jotted it down, saying they'd need proof. Proof. That word stuck with me. I needed proof to clear Emma's name, to show the world what Noah had done. I stayed with Emma until she fell asleep, her breathing shallow but steady. Then I drove home, my mind a storm of anger and fear. Our apartment felt empty without her, the silence deafening. I grabbed her pill bottle from her bag, staring at the little white tablets inside. They looked normal, but I knew they weren't. Noah's voicemail kept replaying in my head, his shaky voice, his half-assed, "I'm sorry." He hadn't even come clean until he heard about the crash. What kind of person does that? I wanted to scream, to punch something, but I had to focus. Emma needed me to fix this. The next morning, I called a lab in downtown Seattle that could test the pills. It wasn't cheap, $200 out of pocket, but I didn't care. I dropped the bottle off, my hands still shaking from the night before. Then I started making calls. I reached out to every person who'd been at that barbecue in Bellevue. My cousin Sarah, my uncle Mike, even our nosy neighbor, Mrs. Larson. "Did you see Noah messing with Emma's stuff?" I asked, my voice raw. Most people hadn't noticed anything, too caught up in the burgers and beers. But then I got a hit. My buddy Jake, who'd been sneaking a smoke by the garage, spoke up. "Yeah, I saw Noah poking around Emma's bag," he said. "Didn't think much of it, but he looked sneaky, like he didn't want anyone to see. It wasn't a smoking gun, but it was something." Jake's words gave me a spark of hope, a thread to pull. I thanked him, my heart pounding, and kept digging. I called the hospital again, checking on Emma. She was stable but shaken, asking when she could go home. I told her I was working on it, that I'd make this right. But inside, I was unraveling. The thought of Noah's smirking face, his careless prank, made my blood boil. He hadn't just hurt Emma, he'd betrayed us both. And for what? His bruised ego? By the time I got Noah on the phone again, I was barely holding it together. "Why, Noah?" I demanded, my voice shaking. "Why would you do this?" he stammered, his usual cocky tone gone. I just wanted to scare her, Ethan. She embarrassed me in front of everyone. I didn't mean for this to happen." "Scare her?" I saw red. "She could have died, Noah. She's in the hospital because of you." He tried to apologize, but it sounded hollow, like he was sorry he got caught, not sorry for what he'd done. I hung up, my chest tight. I couldn't look at him the same way anymore. My brother, my partner in crime growing up, was a stranger now. I drove back to the hospital, the Seattle skyline blurring through my tears. Emma was sitting up when I got there, her eyes clearer but filled with fear. "Ethan, what if they don't believe me?" she whispered. I took her hand, squeezing it tight. "They will. I'm going to prove it." But even as I said it, I felt the weight of what we were up against. Noah's actions had spiraled out of control, and now Emma was paying the price. I wasn't just fighting for her innocence, I was fighting for our future, and I'd be damned if I let my brother take that from us. The lab results came back faster than I expected. I was at my desk, staring at my laptop, when the email pinged. My heart raced as I opened it. The pills in Emma's bottle? Sugar. Pure, useless sugar. I gripped the edge of my desk, my knuckles white. It was proof, hard proof, that Noah had sabotaged her. My girlfriend was lying in a Seattle hospital bed, battered and scared, because my brother thought his pride was worth more than her life. I wanted to scream, but I had to stay focused. Emma's future was on the line: jail time, fines, a record. I wasn't going to let that happen. I called the police officer handling Emma's case, a guy named Officer Daniels. "I've got evidence," I told him, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. "The pills Emma took weren't her meds. They were fakes. Someone swapped them." He sounded skeptical, but agreed to meet me at the station. I printed the lab report, grabbed Jake's contact info. He'd seen Noah messing with Emma's bag at the barbecue, and headed out. Driving through Seattle's rainy streets, I felt like I was holding my breath. This had to work. It had to. At the station, I laid it all out for Daniels. The lab report, Jake's statement, the timeline. "My brother Noah did this," I said, my throat tight. He admitted it to me on the phone. Daniels raised an eyebrow, scribbling notes. "That's a serious accusation, Mr. Carter. You got a recording of that call?" My stomach sank. I didn't. It was just my word against Noah's. But the lab report was solid, and Jake's testimony backed it up. Daniels said they'd look into it, but I could tell he wasn't fully convinced. "We'll need more than this to drop the charges," he warned. I nodded, forcing myself to stay calm. I'd find more. I had to. Back at the hospital, Emma was sitting up, her face still pale but her eyes sharper. I told her about the lab results, watching relief wash over her. "So they'll believe me now?" she asked, her voice small. I squeezed her hand. "They will. I'm making sure of it." But inside, I was terrified. What if it wasn't enough? What if Noah got away with this? I couldn't let that happen. Not after what he'd done to her. I kissed her forehead and promised I'd fix it, then headed out to confront the one person who could end this. Noah lived in a cramped apartment in Capitol Hill, all exposed brick and overpriced rent. I hadn't been there since before the barbecue, and pulling up to his building felt surreal. My heart pounded as I climbed the stairs, each step fueling my anger. I knocked hard, and when Noah opened the door, his usual grin was nowhere to be found. He looked tired, his eyes darting nervously. "Ethan," he said, stepping back. "What's up?" Like he didn't know. I pushed past him, my voice low and sharp. "Did you mess with Emma's meds, Noah? Tell me the truth." He froze, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. I told you, man. It was a joke," he finally mumbled, avoiding my eyes. "A joke." My blood boiled. "A joke?" I snapped. "Emma crashed her car, Noah. She could have died. She's facing jail time because of you." He flinched, backing toward the couch. "I didn't mean for it to go that far," he said, his voice shaking. "I just wanted to mess with her, make her think twice about mouthing off." I stared at him. My brother, the guy I'd once trusted with everything. "You almost killed her," I said, my voice breaking. "Do you even get that?" Noah sank onto the couch, his head in his hands. "I'm sorry, okay? I didn't think." I cut him off. "You didn't think. That's the problem." I wanted him to feel the weight of what he'd done, to see the pain in Emma's eyes, the fear she carried now, but he just sat there, muttering apologies that felt empty. "I need you to tell the police," I said. "Admit what you did." His head snapped up, eyes wide. "Ethan, come on. I can't do that. I'll get in trouble." "Trouble?" I laughed, bitter and cold. "You should have thought about that before you played God with her life." I turned to leave, my chest tight. Noah called after me, his voice desperate. "Ethan, wait! We're family!" I stopped at the door, my hand on the knob. "You stopped being family the second you hurt her," I said, and walked out. The door slammed behind me, the sound echoing in the stairwell. I drove back to the hospital, my mind racing. Noah's words kept looping in my head, his excuses, his refusal to own up. I'd always thought family meant loyalty, but he'd shattered that. Emma was my family now, and I'd do whatever it took to protect her. When I got to Emma's room, she was staring out the window, her hands twisting the hospital blanket. I sat beside her, taking her hand. "I talked to Noah," I said softly. Her eyes met mine, searching. "What did he say?" I swallowed hard, the truth heavy. "He admitted it, but he's not man enough to face the consequences." Emma nodded, her jaw tight. I could see the hurt in her eyes, the betrayal, not just from Noah, but from the fact that my family, my blood, had done this to her. I vowed then and there to fight for her, no matter what it took. The hospital released Emma a few days later, her wrist still in a cast, her ribs tender. I helped her into our Fremont apartment, the place feeling smaller, heavier, with the weight of everything. She was quiet, her eyes distant, like she was still processing the crash, the betrayal. I wanted to fix it, to make her feel safe again, but I didn't know how. The lab report and Jake's statement had convinced the police to drop the reckless driving charges, thank God. But Noah, he faced no consequences, no charges, no nothing. He'd slip through like he always did, leaving Emma and me to pick up the pieces. I couldn't stop thinking about his face in that apartment, his weak apologies. My brother, the guy I'd once idolized, had nearly destroyed the woman I love. And for what? A bruised ego? I kept replaying it, the way he'd called it a joke, like Emma's life was some game. I knew we couldn't stay in Seattle, not with him around, not with my parents just across Lake Washington in Bellevue, acting like nothing was wrong. I called them the day Emma came home, hoping stupidly that they'd see the truth. I drove us to their house, a big Craftsman overlooking the lake. My mom opened the door, her face tight, like she already knew this wouldn't go well. Dad was in the living room, flipping through a newspaper, pretending everything was normal. Emma sat beside me on the couch, her hands folded, her cast stark against her skin. I laid it all out, the lab report, Noah's confession, the crash. He could have killed her, I said, my voice shaking. "And you're okay with that?" Mom's eyes darted to Dad, then back to me. "Ethan, it was a mistake," she said, her tone soft, like she was soothing a kid. "Noah didn't mean for this to happen." I stared at her, my chest tight. "A mistake?" I repeated. "He swapped her meds, Mom. He knew she'd drive. He knew about her narcolepsy." Dad put down his paper, sighing. "You're blowing this out of proportion, son. Noah feels awful. He's your brother." I laughed, sharp and bitter. "He feels awful? Emma's the one with a broken wrist and nightmares every night." Emma's hand found mine, squeezing gently, but she stayed quiet. I could feel her shrinking under their gaze. Then Mom turned to Emma, her voice sharp. "You didn't have to call him out at the barbecue, you know. You could have talked to him privately." My jaw dropped. They were blaming her for standing up to Noah's cruel joke? Emma's face paled, her fingers tightening around mine. "I was defending myself," she said, her voice steady but soft. "I didn't deserve this." Dad shook his head. "You both need to let this go. Family's more important than grudges." I stood, pulling Emma up with me. "Family doesn't do this," I said, my voice cold. "You're choosing Noah over us. We're done here." We left, the door clicking shut behind us. Driving back to Fremont, I felt like I was losing something I'd never get back. My parents, the people who'd raised me, were defending a reckless act that nearly killed Emma. I glanced at her in the passenger seat, her eyes fixed on the rain-streaked window. "I'm sorry," I whispered. She shook her head, her voice barely audible. "It's not your fault, Ethan." But it felt like it was. I'd brought Noah into her life. I'd trusted him. That night, we sat on our couch, the Seattle skyline glowing faintly through the window. "We can't stay here," I said, my voice low. Emma nodded, her eyes red. "I don't feel safe anymore." It hurt to hear, but she was right. Seattle held too many ghosts, Noah, my parents, the crash. We needed a fresh start, somewhere far from the drama. By morning, we'd decided Portland, Oregon, a new city, a new life. We found a small apartment online, a cozy place in the Pearl District, and started packing. It wasn't easy leaving Seattle was home, with its coffee shops, ferries, and memories of better days, but staying felt like drowning. The move was chaos, boxes everywhere, Emma wincing as she tried to pack with her cast. I took over most of it, hauling furniture to a U-Haul while she sorted photos and keepsakes. The first few weeks in Portland were rough. Emma was still healing, physically and emotionally. She'd wake up gasping from nightmares about the crash, her hands shaking as she reached for me. I'd hold her, whispering that she was safe, but I felt helpless. My own guilt gnawed at me, guilt for not seeing Noah's true colors sooner, for not protecting her. I was also grappling with the loss of my family. Cutting off Noah was one thing, but my parents? That hurt deeper than I expected. We leaned on each other, though. Emma started therapy, working through the trauma, the fear of losing control. I threw myself into our new life, finding a job at a Portland tech firm. Slowly, the city started to feel like home. We'd walk along the Willamette River, grab coffee at quirky cafes, and talk about the future. But the past wasn't done with us. Not yet. Noah's silence felt like a temporary reprieve, and my parents' voicemails pleading for me to fix things with Noah kept coming. I ignored them, but each one was a reminder of what we'd left behind. Emma and I promised to keep moving forward, no matter what. We had to. Portland's rainy streets became our sanctuary. Emma and I settled into our Pearl District apartment, a small space with big windows that let in soft, gray light. The first few months were hard. Emma's nightmares lingered, waking her in a panic, her breath ragged. I'd hold her close, my heart aching as she whispered, "I'm scared I'll never feel safe again." Therapy helped, though. She started seeing a counselor, a kind woman who specialized in trauma. Slowly, Emma began to trust herself again, her smile returning like sunlight breaking through clouds. I learned to listen, to be there without trying to fix everything. It wasn't easy, but it made us stronger. I found a new rhythm at my tech job, coding away while Portland's coffee shops became my second home. We made friends, real ones, like our neighbor Lily, who'd drag us to food truck festivals. Emma started sketching again, her designs sharper than ever. We'd walk along the Willamette River, talking about dreams we hadn't dared voice in Seattle. A house someday, maybe a dog. For the first time in months, the future felt possible. Noah's silence helped. No calls, no texts, nothing. I thought maybe he'd finally gotten it, that what he'd done was unforgivable. My parents, though, were another story. Their voicemails piled up, each one a lecture about family loyalty and forgiving Noah's mistake. I deleted them, my jaw tight. They didn't get it. They never would. Life was good, or at least getting there, until a cold December morning changed everything. I was grabbing the mail from our building's lobby when I saw it, a letter, handwritten, from my parents in Bellevue. My stomach twisted. Part of me wanted to toss it, unopened, but curiosity won out. Back in our apartment, I sat at the kitchen table, Emma beside me, and tore it open. The words spilled out, pages of apologies and pleas. They were sorry for siding with Noah, for not seeing how serious it was. They wanted to meet, to talk, to rebuild. My hands shook as I read. Was this real, or just another attempt to sweep it all under the rug? Emma watched me, her eyes soft but guarded. "What do you think?" she asked. I didn't know. Part of me missed them, the Sunday dinners, the bad dad jokes, but another part remembered their betrayal, how they'd blamed Emma for Noah's actions. We talked for hours, sprawled on our couch, the city twinkling outside. Emma was amazing, as always. "Whatever you decide, I'm with you," she said, squeezing my hand. I decided to give it a chance, not for them, but for me. I needed to know if they'd changed. We arranged to meet at a cozy cafe in Portland's Alberta Arts District, a neutral spot with warm lights and the smell of fresh espresso. My heart pounded as we walked in. My parents sat at a corner table, looking older than I remembered, grayer, smaller. Mom's eyes were red, like she'd been crying. Dad's hands fidgeted with a napkin. I sat across from them, Emma's hand in mine under the table. The conversation was awkward, stilted. They apologized again, their voices heavy. "We were wrong," Mom said, her eyes on Emma. "We didn't understand how much this hurt you." Dad nodded, his voice low. "We shouldn't have defended Noah. He's got to figure this out on his own. It wasn't perfect. They didn't say everything I wanted, but it was something. A start. I could see they meant it, or at least wanted to." Emma spoke up, her voice steady. "I just need to know you see what he did. It wasn't a mistake. It was a choice." Mom nodded, tears spilling over. "We see it now," she said. I felt a weight lift, just a little. Not forgiveness, not yet, but a crack in the wall I'd built. We didn't hug or make grand promises. We just agreed to keep talking, to try. As we left the cafe, the cold air hit my face, and I felt lighter, like I'd been carrying a stone I could finally set down. Emma slipped her arm through mine, her smile small but real. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded, pulling her close. "Yeah, we're okay. Noah never reached out again, and I was fine with that. I didn't need his apologies, didn't need him in our lives. Emma and I had built something stronger, a life rooted in trust, in us. My parents might be part of it someday, but only on our terms. For now, we had Portland, each other, and a future we were writing ourselves. That was enough."